Listen to the radio, Harry and Edna's Wireless Show. You heard it from the Three Bells.
And what-o, and welcome. This is Harry and Edna on the Wireless, where we're going to take you by the hand and look through the vintage scene as it was in 2020.
What-ho?
And welcome to this 2020 Harry and Edna on the Wireless. Well, actually it's 2021, which is rather fitting because the last couple of tracks you heard were from the 1920s, because I guess we're officially back in the roaring 20s. Now, in this programme, we're going to host a vintage review of 2020. And I'll be brutally honest, where on earth would you start on a review of 2020? Well, all I can say is it sure has been a dipsy year.
What-ho?
As we look back and we left 2019 and entered 2020, a global pandemic was far from our minds. Indeed, we were looking forward to a cracking year on the vintage scene, including a planned celebration about the ATS pilot, Mary Ellis.
So on today's show, we have Daniel Sabani, owner of Sandown Airport. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Hi there, pleased to be talking to you.
So we're going to be talking about a very, very interesting lady called Mary Ellis.
Well, Mary, like so many people, did a lot for our country during the war. For us, Mary has a special sort of place in our heart because she ran Sandown Airport after the war, and she basically lived on the airport. But she's an incredible lady. So during the war, she delivered thousands of aircraft, quite often single-handedly without any instruments. So absolutely fabulous woman.
I just think the story of the ATA was incredible because Mary started off, so she knew how to fly before war started, wasn't it? She was already a pilot in her own right.
That's right. She learned to fly actually at Sandown Airport, and believe it or not, we have the aircraft coming that she trained in before the war at Sandown, coming to the Mary Ellis Day celebration.
Oh, fantastic. And she took a ride in a biplane at a very young age during a flying circus, is that right?
Well, I couldn't tell you that's well before my time.
But you just couldn't do that now, could you? We wouldn't have flying circuses that you could pay to go on a ride.
No, I think the rules, the rules and all the PC stuff, it's far more stringent now. But there's all sorts of things you can still do. People still do wing walking and skydiving and all manner of odd things.
I just love the thought of this flying circus and her father paying for her to have a little joyride up in a biplane. It's just
it's just incredible, isn't it?
What fun. As we say, she got her pilot's licence and was just flying for pleasure until the outbreak of war. I didn't realise that all civilian flying was banned during wartime. I'm assuming now, actually. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and a lot of airfields were closed down, so the runways had concrete blocks put them, including Sandown Airport. They had concrete blocks put across them, obviously to stop any invasions. Oh, absolutely. And if you imagine, during the war, it isn't really sensible to have any kind of pleasure flying. I don't think, you'd really want to hear any aircraft knocking around in the sky at all, unless you knew they were there to defend you.
What-ho?
Now, this radio show, Harry and Edna on the Wireless, entered a little bit of controversy in 2020 when we asked the question, is it acceptable to wear vintage every day? Joining us on that show was vintage fashion icon and guru, Sally Sweetlove.
Come back to our interview with Sally because we were talking again about what inspired you to start making your own clothes and then doing it as a business. And I think we were saying earlier you were taught by your nana.
I was taught to knit by my nana, but I was taught to sew at school at a very, very young age, in my primary school, in fact. And the first thing I ever made was a red corduroy bib front skirt, and I lived and died in it until it fell apart.
In primary school?
In primary school.
Wow.
Probably the last 2 years, but yeah, we didn't have a buttonholer, and no zigzag on the machine, so we had to put the hugest Preston on it. And it used to keep popping off.
But we were sort of just talking off air again and saying, that's really dying at school, though. They just don't teach the things that I was taught at school, and so to me, sort of making clothing is a bit of a dying art because they're not teaching it
I think
anymore.
it is, and I do have my fingers crossed in some way that the programme that's on at the moment, that I confess of not having seen, the British Sewing Bee, will help in terms of a revival and making things yourself. And I think it's just a satisfaction thing that you can take as long as you like. You can get it to fit you. You can get the right. How many times people say, "Oh, I like it, but if it was only this or that or the other." If you've got that little bit of know-how, you can, not necessarily vintage or retro, even modern, you can make something be exactly what you want it to be. And I think that's really exciting.
Do you think people are put off because they think it's really, really hard to do?
I think they think it's really, really hard, and I think they think they're going to mess up or they don't understand some of the terminology. But a lot of the time you could probably just follow the pictures on the modern patterns. Some of the vintage ones are a bit... even I have to say, are you sure that's right? And then I'll follow their process and then I might change it. But because people knew how to say that's a different kettle of fish, but I think on the modern patterns, the reproductions of the originals, those instructions are so much better. I think most people could go for it. I really do.
Yeah. And do you think expense puts people off? Because it is just so much cheaper to buy new, isn't it, rather than buying all your bits and pieces and material?
It is, but it depends where you buy from in the first place. I mean, if you're going to buy from a, mid-range high street store, then, it's probably going to cost you less. But then you've got the danger of walking into a room and somebody's got the same outfit as you. Yeah. And personally, I would die if that ever happened to me. Sounds a bit dramatic, but it's probably true. And that's never happened to me, ever. But I wouldn't want to look like everybody else. And I think most people do want an edge of individuality, but you can still keep that within the mainstream. But if you've done it yourself as well, you've also got the, I made it. Yeah. Smugness. Yeah.
I like it. What ho?
This is Harry and Edna on the Wireless, and we're reviewing the vintage scene in 2020. Well, we've reached that stage when the pandemic hit. Lockdown had started, and it was pretty much a scary time for all. Sophie Bembridge from the period Clothier at Stanley Biggs recited this poem, which kind of summed up the period.
Hello. I thought I'd read a poem to you all by one of my favourites, called Spike Milligan. It's about an epidemic of different qualities, and I thought it was appropriate, particularly with social distancing and the importance of still staying connected to everyone. So here it is. It's called Smile. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I walked around the corner and someone saw me grin. When he smiled, I realised I'd passed it on to him. I thought about the smile and then realised its worth. A single smile like mine could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Start an epidemic and get the world infected.
What ho?
As the pandemic continued, the vintage scene moved online, and as ever on our show, Harry and Ed on the Wireless, we featured as much of this new online vintage scene as possible, including our good chum Tom Carradine, who held self-isolating sing-alongs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Carradine's Cockney self-isolating sing-along. Lovely to see all of you. Faye is keeping an eye on the comments, so hopefully she can tell me who's in and what's there. So if you've got your songbooks, they're on my website, carradinescockneysingalong.co.uk. On the front page, just click download and it's there. I've got some requests as well for you, so we'll see how we go. Let's start with this one. And the verse goes like this. You're going to know this, the regulars.
What ho?
Sadly, in 2020, Dame Vera Lynn died, and for the first time ever on Harry and Ed on the Wireless, we held a memorial show, which included a snippet from one of her iconic radio shows.
Hello, everyone. Well, that song, of course, was Smile Down Your Smile. So if you were feeling a little gloomy, I hope that you have now done that very thing. Here comes a melody from France, but fortunately for me, it has English lyrics. I remember today.
What ho?
2020 was also the 75th anniversary of Victory VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, and to commemorate this anniversary, we produced a special Harry and Ed on the Wireless featuring period news broadcasts, taking you through the events as they happened 75 years ago.
Hello BBC, this is Thomas Cadet reporting from Supreme Headquarters. Yes, I saw it. In the small hours of this morning, May the 7th, 1945, I saw the formal acknowledgement by Germany's present leaders, military leaders of their country's complete and utter defeat by land, in the air and at sea. The final act, General Yodel's signed admission of unconditional surrender, had little or nothing outwardly dramatic about it. The whole ceremony, in fact, was carried out on a cold and businesslike basis, which was not increased in dignity by numerous scurrying photographers, the glare of powerful lights, and the popping of flashlight bulbs. If the sense of drama was there, and it was because we carried it in our own hearts, remembering that this meant liberation, freedom from suffering, and spared lives for countless thousands in tortured Europe. It was not the ceremony that mattered, but the thing itself.
What ho?
2020 was the year we all started Zooming each other, and this gave us an opportunity to chat to various diamonds of the vintage scene and feature them on Harry Edna on Wireless. This included one of the UK's greatest all-round entertainers, Adam Hoffman.
What ho?
I'd like to welcome to the show Adam Hoffman. Welcome, Adam.
Hello guys. Welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. So do you want to tell our listeners, because enlighten our listeners as to who Adam Hoffman is and what is your specialities?
Oh, the man, the myth, the myth, the legend. Yeah. Well, if they haven't heard about me, I'm very disappointed in them. No, I like to say I'm an all-round entertainer, specialising in vintage, but I'm a magician, a singer, a children's entertainer, a musician, and then various other things in between. It's all I know. I couldn't do a real job if you asked me. It's what full-time, I've been doing it for just over 27 years now.
So how do you become a kind of all-round entertainer? What is it? Is it...
the truth is, when people normally ask me how I do that kind of thing, to be fair, I often just ask, I'm not good enough at one thing to just do that, so I've learned loads of things. It's things, some of the things I've picked up, but a big part of it is definitely, God rest his soul, my father. He was a bit of a home performer, so to speak, and I was brought up listening to the music he liked, which is Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole, and that kind of stuff. So I was kind of brought up on that. So I always had a passion for that. And then when I was 5, my mum bought me, because I love Tommy Cooper and Paul Daniels, so mum bought me a magic set, as you always buy kids.
Yeah.
They love a magic set. But I didn't kind of ever lose the love for that. So I carried on doing magic. And then when I was 15, I started doing kids' parties, which was strange because some of the parties were like 11-year-old kids, and I was only a couple of years older than them, and I was the entertainer.
That's a very brave thing to do at 15, isn't it?
Brave and stupid, some say. Yeah, what was the strangest part of it was most kids of that age were saving their pocket money up to spend on sweets, and I saved up my pocket money. And the first thing I did once I had enough money, and this was at 15, I paid for an advert in the Yellow Pages, which I don't think you have anymore. And it was literally, I called myself the Great remember the Great Soprendo?
Yeah.
Piff, paff, poof.
Yeah.
Well, I liked him, so I thought I wanted to use his... I'm Hoffman, so I decided to call myself the Great Hoffamondo, which is
fantastic.
Really, really, really bad when you think about it now. And so, I put an advert with my pocket money, I put an advert in, and then with my next lot of pocket money, and I already had a booking, and with the money I got from that, I bought pens with my business, sort of a business card which was a pen with my number on, and that is, it just kept going from there.
What ho?
Now, when Edna and I first started in the UK vintage scene, probably about 25 years ago, the scene was very small, but thanks to the power of a very early internet, we managed to make friends with other enthusiasts from all over the world. One of our earliest friends in the vintage scene was Australian actor and singer Greg Poppleton, and thanks to Zoom, we could meet up.
I'd like to welcome to the show Greg Poppleton, who specialises in singing songs from the 1920s and 1930s and sort of sticks with that style. It's really exciting because you're talking to us from the other side of the world. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you, Edna, and hello, Harry, and hello, everybody tuning in. Yep, I'm talking from Sydney in Australia. So if you look down at the floor and you think a few thousand miles through the core of the earth, I'm at the other side.
Wow. I think for our listeners, it's just amazing that we're able to talk, but also from the other side of the world, but also that the scene that we all know and love is worldwide, isn't it? It's not isolated to one particular country. There's a love of vintage music across the globe.
There is all across the globe, and in places like, for example, Russia seems to have a swing dance culture and a vintage music culture, which you wouldn't expect because of its history as a Soviet Union. And of course, throughout the English-speaking world, throughout Europe, different countries seem to be more into it than other countries. Certainly the United States and the UK has a big scene. New Zealand has a fantastic festival because of its Art Deco city, Napier. And Australia has never really been much of a jazz and swing country, but it does have a dedicated swing dance scene and also a dedicated audience of people who love the music from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and who like jazz and swing. And I can say this, Edna and Harry, I can say this, that in the future, that will remain the same, at least for the next 10 hours in the future, because in Australia, I am speaking from your future.
Yes,
I am 10 hours into the future.
I know, that's really bizarre.
to be on the stage or to sit by the wall and hope someone picks me to dance with them.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure you don't get off the dance floor. So in Australia, how did you get into the music scene? Is it something you've had as a love from a child, or is it something you kind of came to later on life as you discovered that particular music scene?
It's something that I had since I was a child. When I was around 3 years old, I saw Louis Armstrong on TV. From then on, I fell in love with the music, and in particular, I fell in love with the old music. And probably because back then, that kind of music, at least in Australia, wasn't heard all that often. It was a case of the unfamiliar made it even more and more interesting, because there certainly wasn't much jazz around.
What ho!
Another one of our heroes we managed to Zoom with was Janeberly, fellow radio host and daughter of Ray Eberly, who was Glenn Miller's lead vocalist.
So I'd like to welcome to the show today somebody, one of our guests who we're speaking to all the way from Florida, which is amazing. I'd love to welcome to the show Janeberly. Welcome to the show, Jan.
Thank you both. I'm so happy to get a chance to see you again. It's a treat.
So you're talking to us all the way from Florida. What's it like in Florida right now for you?
It's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's very sunny, and it's dry, and there was a nice cool breeze today, so it's just beautiful.
So I'm sat here in my jumper. You're sat there in your T-shirt. So
I'm sorry.
It's nice and warm where you are.
78, something like that. Yep, it'll stay moderate like this, drier, and winds shift out, so it's really hard to boat this time of year, but I don't have a boat anymore, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
It does.
So, Jen, you're joining us on the show today because you have the most amazing career yourself, but also the most amazing sort of family connections to the 1940s scene. It really does go back to, I guess, your family history and your dad.
Well, my father and my uncle Bob Everly's family are from upstate New York, and my grandparents were actually musicians. My grandfather was a singer. I never met him because there's quite a bit an age difference, and my grandmother was a piano player, so that's how they met. He was a singer, and he was looking for somebody to accompany him. And so I think when they started the family and things started rolling on, I think they exposed the children to the music. I think it was a happy thing to do. They got started in the family hotel called Jack's Place, which is my grandfather. And so they played there and they raised the children. They did things like, go down to the local barber and sing barbershop quartet with them. So it was sort of all about music. Not all about music, but a lot about music.
Yeah.
And even though my grandparents didn't pursue anything professional, they played in local, theater houses. And I envision my grandfather's voice to be like my Uncle Bob's, very strong and very robust. And so that's where it started.
Sorry, was this in Florida or was this?
No, this was upstate New York.
Right.
Outside of Albany, right near the border of Vermont. So it's very hilly and beautiful, cold winters, beautiful cow farms, just really, really beautiful. So they left at different times. My uncle won a contest singing, and so he was offered a period of time to sing with a group down in New York, so he went down, and the Dorsey brothers heard him and wanted him to sing with them, and that's how he started there.
Wow.
My father still being on the farm yet, a couple years younger.
What ho?
Well, we're almost up to date with our review of 2020, and we ended the year with a Christmas party. Well, it was a Zoom Christmas party, and of course it included the Christmas quiz.
Yeah.
Did you know Father Christmas is considered an equal opportunities reindeer employer? Are his reindeer both male and female, all male or all female?
All male.
Male.
We honestly don't really know it, but they're probably all female because male reindeers lose their antlers in December. Christmas reindeer always depicted of having antlers. This means either Santa's sleighs either pulled by very young reindeer who haven't lost their antlers yet, or more likely are all female.
I imagine they wouldn't use young reindeer because I assume they're like donkeys, so they can't work till they're at least 5 years old.
And I think he uses the same one year after year.
Yeah, they must be very old.
What ho?
Well, that concludes our review of the vintage scene in 2020. We hope you enjoyed it, and let's be brutally honest, 2021, it's defo got to be better than this one. So we're going to play out with a little bit of Isolation Cockney Sing-Along with the wonderful Mr. Tom Carradine, so it's just time for me to say toodle pip.
What ho?
There we go. Give yourselves a round of applause. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo, my word. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have almost come to the end of the sing-along this evening. As I said, if you like what I do at Caroline's Cockney Sing-Along, you can also sign up to my mailing list, which is on my website. Hopefully, if you've got the lyrics from as well, sign up to my mailing list. So that eventually, when I have some gigs come in, you might be able to join me for a real-life sing-along rather than this virtual thing going on. Well, I'm afraid that's it, really. If you're up to nothing, well, maybe we'll do the same thing again next Thursday at 8:30. And hopefully I'll get through more of my list of requests. And if you've got any requests in the meantime to put through, then I will endeavour to do them. So have a great week. I'm going to leave you with actually two songs. I'm going to give you two songs.
What ho?